In this video, I'm going to go through some of the problems in Unit 5. The first problem is to expand x plus 5 times x plus 8. As usual, I'm going to draw the arrows from each term in the first bracket. So x times x gives me x squared. X times 8 gives me 8x. 5 times x gives me 5x. This is the second term now. And 5 times 8 gives me 40. Now there is no like term to x squared, so I get x squared plus, these two are like terms, so 8 plus 5 is 13x plus 40. The second problem is 2x plus 9 times 7x minus 10. Again, 2x times 7x gives me 14x squared. 2x times negative 10 gives me negative 20x. Now the second term, 9 times 7x gives me 63x. And 9 times negative 10 gives me negative 90. There is no like term to 14x squared. But negative 20x and 63x gives me plus 43x. And then I have a negative 90. So this is the final answer. The next question is x plus 13 exponent 2. To do this one, remember the formula that we got before. A plus b squared is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. We can also use multiplying two brackets together, but I'm going to use this formula. So it's going to be x squared plus 2 times 13 is 26 times x is going to give me 26x plus 13 squared is 169. As I said, we can also find the same answer by doing this multiplication. But it's much faster to use the formula. The next one is x minus 7 times x plus 7. I can either go ahead and multiply every term of the first bracket with the second bracket, or I can use the formula a minus b times a plus b is equal to a squared minus b squared, the difference of squares. So here I get x squared minus 49. The next question says, write a simplified expression for the area of the rectangle. The area is, for the rectangle, is length times width. Is going to be x minus 2, 8x minus 2 times 2x plus 1. I'm going to distribute the first term to the second bracket, so 8 times 2 is 16x squared. 8x times 1 is 8x. Negative 2 times 2x is negative 4x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. There is no like term to 16x squared, so this is 16x squared. 8x minus 4x gives me plus 4x, and then minus 2. The next question says, write each relation in standard form. The first one is y equal to 5 times x plus 10 squared plus 7. Again, I can either multiply two brackets x plus 10 together, or I can use the formula a plus b squared is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So I can write this one as 5 times x squared plus 2ab, so 2 times 10 is 20 times x is 20x plus 100 plus 7. Now I multiply 5 inside the bracket, I get 5x squared plus 10x plus 500 plus 7. When I simplify, 5x squared has no like terms here, 10x the same way, and then 500 plus 7 give me 507. The next one, we have to expand y equal negative 0.5 x plus 8 squared plus 4 in standard form. Again, I use the formula a plus b squared is equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So this becomes negative 0.5 x squared plus 16x, 2 times 8 times x is 16x plus 64, 8 squared plus 4. Now I multiply negative 0.5 inside the bracket. I get negative 0.5 x squared. Negative 0.5 times 8 gives me negative 8x. Negative 0.5 times 64 gives me negative 32 plus 4. This gives me negative 0.5 x squared minus 8x minus 32 plus 4 gives me minus 28. Now in this part of the questions, we have to find the y-intercept for each of the relations in question 3. Part A and part B are given here. To find the y-intercept, we just let x to be equal to 0 and find y. For this case, for the first one, y becomes 5 times 0 plus 10 squared plus 7, which is equal to 0 plus 10 is 10, squared is 100, times 5 is 500, plus 7 is 507. So the y-intercept for the first one is 507. For the second one, again, I'm going to get negative 0.5, 0 plus 8 squared plus 4. 0 plus 8 is 8, squared is 64, times negative 0.5 is negative 32, plus 4 is negative 28. The next question is an application. It says a ball is kicked straight up. The path is given by this equation, where h is the ball's height in meters, h0 is the ball's initial height in meters, t is the time in seconds, v0 is the ball's initial velocity in meters per second. The ball reaches a maximum height of 45 meters after 3 seconds. We are supposed to find the ball's initial velocity and initial height. We know that the vertex here is given in the problem is 3, 45, because after 3 seconds it reaches the maximum height. But we know, based on knowledge from the previous videos, that the v sub x, the x coordinate of the vertex, is minus b over 2a. If you look at the equation, b is v sub 0, so it's going to be negative v sub 0 over 2a. A is negative 4.9, so it's 2 times negative 4.9. But based on the problem, the x coordinate of the vertex is 3. So this is equal to 3, or I can write it as 3 over 1. I can cross multiply. I get negative v0 is equal to 3 times 2 times negative 4.9. Divide both sides by negative, or negative 1, and simplify 3 times 2 times negative 4.9 over negative 1. We get v sub 0 is 29.4 meters per second. Now that we know V0 is 29.4, we have to find H sub 0. But we know that after T equal to 3, H is 45. So if I sub H 45, T equal to 3, and V0 is 29.5, I can solve for H0. So I'm going to have something like 45, which is H, is equal to negative 4.9 T is 3 squared plus V0. V0 is 29.4 times T, which is 3 plus H0. Now I can go ahead and solve this one for H0. So I can say H0 is 45. If I move this one to the left, I get positive, so 4.9. 3 squared is 9 times 9 minus, when it goes to the left, it becomes negative 3 times 29.4. If you simplify this one with your calculator, you get that H0 is 0.9 meters. The next question says factor x squared plus 15x. We can see that the common factor is x, so this becomes x times x plus 15. The next question, factor x squared plus 13x plus 40. First, there is no common factor. Second, the leading coefficient is 1, so I can use the sum and product. I'm going to find a pair of numbers that the product is 40. Those numbers are 1, 40, 2, 20, 4, 10, and 5, 8. Because the next pair becomes 8 and 5, which already have 5 and 8. Now, between these 4 pairs of numbers, I have to find the one that the sum is 13. The only pair which satisfies this condition is 5 and 8. So I can write this one as x plus 5 times x plus 8. The next question is x squared plus 10x plus 25. Again, there is no common factor. The leading coefficient is 1, so I can use sum and product. The pair of numbers that the product is 25 are 1 and 25, 5 and 5. Now between these two pairs, I have to find the one with the sum equal to 10, and this is the candidate 5 and 5, so I get x plus 5 times x plus 5, which is the same as x plus 5 squared. The next one is x squared minus 81. This is difference of squares. The square root of x squared is x, the square root of 81 is 9, so this is x minus 9 times x plus 9. The next one is x squared plus 2x minus 24. Again, there is no common factor, and the leading coefficient is 1, so I can use sum and product. The two numbers that they multiply to 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And the next one is 6 and 4, which is a repetition, so we stop. Now, between these two pairs, I have to find the one that the sum is 2. But remember that the product is negative, so this means that one has to be positive, the other one has to be negative. And since the sum is plus 2, this means that the best candidate is plus 6 and minus 4. Because the product is negative 24 and the sum is 6 minus 4 is 2. So I can write this one as x minus 4 times x plus 6. The next problem says write the factored expression for the area of the shaded region of this figure. to find the area of this shaded region here, I will find the area of the big rectangle, which is x squared, x times x, and I subtract the area of these 4 squares. Each square, the area is 4 times 4, but there are 4 of them, so it's going to be 4 times 4 times 4. This 2 gives you the area of 1 squared. There are 4 of them, so it's going to be 4 times 4 times 4, which is x squared minus 64. Now, to write it as a factored form, I use the difference of squares. The square root of x squared is x, the square root of 64 is 8, so I can write this one as x minus 8 times x plus 8. The next part of the question says find the area of the shaded region when x is 30. So this was the area we found, so I just sub 30 in the equation. I get a is 30 minus 8 times 30 plus 8. If you simplify and use your calculator, you get the area is 836 square centimeter. The next example says factor fully 4x squared plus 72x plus 308. The first thing we do is that we common factor, we can take 4 out, so we get x squared plus 18x plus 77. Now, there is no common factor, the leading coefficient is 1, so I can use the sum and product. I have to find two numbers that the product is 77. Those two numbers can be either 177 or 711. Between these two pairs, I have to pick the one with the sum equal to 18. And the correct one is 11 and 7, so I get 4x plus 7 times x plus 11. The next polynomial to factor is 12x squared plus 96x. Again, I'm going to go with common factor here. The common factor between 12 and 96 is 12, and the common factor between x squared and x is x. So 12x squared divided by 12x is x plus 96 divided by 12 is going to give me 8. So this is the final answer. The next expression to factor is 3x squared minus 12x minus 35. The common factor is 3. So I get x squared minus 4x minus 45. Now, there is no common factor. The leading coefficient is 1, so I'm going to try to use sum and product. The two numbers that the product is 45 are 145, 315, and 5 and 9. Now, because the product is negative, this means that one of these numbers in pairs, they have to be negative. And the sum is negative 4. So this means the best candidate is 5 and 9. If I make this one negative and this one positive, negative 9 times 5 is negative 45, and negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4. So I get 3x plus 5, x minus 9. The next one is negative 2x squared minus 24x minus 72. I can factor negative 2 out. I get negative 2x squared minus plus 12x plus 36. Again, there is no more common factor. The leading coefficient is 1, so I'm going to use sum and product. Two numbers that they multiply to 36. These two numbers are 136, 218, 312, 49, and 66. Now, between these pairs, we have to find one with the sum equal to 12. 6 and 6 is the number. So I'm going to have negative 2x plus 6 times x plus 6, which gives me negative 2x plus 6 squared. The next question says, write a factored expression for the area of the shaded region of this figure. The shaded region is this part. To find that, I'm going to subtract the smaller area from the bigger one. The bigger one, the area, is pi r squared. The small one is pi times 3 squared. So the shaded region, the area is pi r squared minus pi times 3 squared, which is pi r squared minus 9 pi. I factor pi out, I get r squared minus 9. This is the difference of squares, so I can write it as pi r minus 3 times r plus 3. The next part of the question says, if r is equal to 15 millimeter, find the area of the shaded region. This means that in this equation we found in part A, we just substitute r equal to 15, so I get A is pi 15 minus 3 times 15 plus 3. If you use your calculator, you get this is equal to 260 pi square millimeter. The next part of the question says find the zeros of each quadratic relation. Y equal x squared minus 16x. To find the zeros, you have to substitute y equal to 0. So I have to solve this equation. To solve this one, I can either use quadratic formula or use factoring. Probably factoring is much easier. I can factor x out, so I get x minus 16 equal to 0. When the product of two numbers is 0, then it means that at least one of them has to be 0. So there are two possibilities. Either x is equal to 0, meaning this one, or x minus 16 is equal to 0. If x minus 16 is 0, then it means that x is equal to 16. I can move this one to the right. So the answer is x equal to 0 or x equal to 16. The next one is y equal x squared minus 16. Again, we have to find the zeros. To find the zeros, we make this guy equal to 0. To solve this one, I have two options, quadratic formula or factoring. Probably factoring is the best one. So I'm going to say x squared minus 16. I use difference of squares, so I can write this one as x minus 4 times x plus 4. Remember, square root of x squared is x, square root of 16 is 4, so I can write as the product of the brackets. Now, when the product of two numbers is 0, this means that either x minus 4 has to be 0 or x plus 4 has to be 0. If x minus 4 is 0, I move it to the right, I get x is equal to 4. I move this one to the right, I get x is equal to negative 4. The next one, to find the zeros of y equals 6x squared plus 24x minus 72 minus 192. Again, I make this guy equal to 0. To factor this one, I'm going to factor 6 out. So I'm going to get 6 times x squared plus 4x minus 32 is equal to 0. The product of 6 and this bracket is 0. 6 cannot be 0, so this means that x squared plus 4x minus 32 has to be 0. Again, I can use quadratic formula or factor. There is no more factoring, meaning no common factor. The leading coefficient is 1, so I can use sum and product. Two numbers that the product is 32 are 132, 216, and 48. Now the product is negative, so this means one of these numbers in the pairs, they have to be negative number. The sum is plus 4. So this means that if I have 4 and 8, if I make 4 to be negative and 8 to be positive, the product is negative 32, but the sum is 4. So I get x minus 4 times x plus 8 is equal to 0. Again, the product of two numbers is 0. So either x minus 4 has to be 0 or x plus 8 has to be 0. X minus 4 is 0, so I get x has to be 4 because I can move negative 4 to the right. X plus 8 has to be 0, so x is negative 8 because I can move 8 to the right and it becomes negative. The next question says write each quadratic relation in standard form, then find the zeros. To do this one, I'm going to expand 3 times x minus 1 squared minus 147, but I'm going to use the formula a minus b squared is equal to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. This is exactly the same formula we use for a plus b squared, but instead of plus 2ab, I'm going to have negative 2ab. So this becomes 3 times x squared minus 2x, because minus 1 times 2 times x is minus 2x, plus 1 minus 147. Now I expand 3 inside the bracket. I get 3x squared minus 6x plus 3 minus 147, which is going to give me 3x squared minus 6x. 3 minus 147 is minus 144. Now, I can use the common factor 3, and I can say this is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 48. Now, to find the 0, we have to make this one equal to 0. 3 can't be 0, so the only possibility is x squared minus 2x minus 48 is equal to 0. There is no more common factor here. The leading coefficient is 1, so I can use sum and product. So I have to find two numbers that the product is 48. Those two numbers are 148, 224, 316, 412, and 6 and 8. Now, the product is negative 48. So this means one of these numbers in the pair, it has to be negative. And also the sum is negative 2. So this means the candidate is negative 8 and plus 6. Because negative 8 times 6 is negative 48. Negative 8 plus 6 is going to give me negative 2. So this one I can write as x plus 6 times x minus 8 is equal to 0. There are two possibilities. Either this is 0, so x plus 6 is 0. So x is negative 6. X minus 8 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 8. Because negative 8 to the right becomes positive, so x is equal to 8. The next example is y equal negative 4 times x plus 6 squared plus 36. We use the formula again. We say this is equal to negative 4 x squared plus 2 times 6 is 12, so it's 12x plus 36 plus 36. Now I'm going to distribute negative 4 inside. So it's going to give me negative 4x squared, negative 48, negative 144, plus 36, which is going to be negative 4x squared. There is an x here. Negative 48x. Now negative 144 plus 36 gives me negative 108. Now to find the zeros, we have to set this one is equal to 0. So I can common factor negative 4. So I get x squared plus 12x plus 27 is equal to 0. Negative 4 can't be 0, so this has to be 0. So x squared plus 12x plus 27 is equal to 0. There is no common factor, and the leading coefficient is 1, so I can use sum and product. Two numbers that the product is 27 are 1 and 27, 3 and 9. Now the product has to be 27 and the sum has to be 12, so the pair is 3 and 9. So I get x plus 3 times x plus 9 is equal to 0. It gives me two solutions. Either x plus 3 is 0, so x is negative 3, or x plus 9 is 0, so x is equal to negative 9. The next question says the path of a soccer ball can be modeled by the relationship h is equal to negative 0.1 d squared plus 0.5 d plus 0.6. H is the height and d is the horizontal distance from the kicker. Find the zeros of the relation. So we have to set h is equal to 0. This means 0.1 d squared plus 0.5 d plus 0.6 has to be equal to 0. I can common factor negative 0.1 out, so I get d squared minus 5d minus 6 is equal to 0. The product of the two numbers is 0, so either this has to be 0, which can't be, so this has to be 0. So d squared minus 5d minus 6 is equal to 0. I can either use quadratic formula or factoring. I try to use factoring. There is no common factor. The leading coefficient is 1, so I can use sum and product. Two numbers that the product is 6 are 1, 6, 2, and 3. The product is negative and the sum is negative 5. So this means that the pair that I have to pick is negative 6 and plus 1. Because negative 6 times plus 1 gives me negative 6. Negative 6 plus 1 gives me negative 5. So I get d plus 1 times d minus 6 is equal to 0. The product of two numbers is 0, so each one of them, at least one of them has to be 0. So this one gives me d is equal to negative 1. This one gives me d is equal to 6. Now, if you look at the context of the problem, d represents the distance from the kicker. Distance can't be negative, so this means that negative 1 is not acceptable. So this means that d is equal to 6. And what exactly it means is that the distance between the kicker and when the ball hits the ground is 6 meters. The next question says, for each quadratic relation, find the zeros and the maximum or minimum. First, if we look at the first one, we can see that the leading coefficient is plus 1. So this means that the quadratic is going to open upward. So the vertex is minimum. Now to find the zeros, I'm going to use factoring, although you can use quadratic formula too. But the first one, there is no common factor and leading coefficient is 1. So I'm going to try to find two numbers that the product is 39, add up to 16. Those two numbers are 1 and 39. and 3, 13. Since the sum is plus 16, I can have plus 13 and plus 3, because plus 13 times plus 3 gives me 39, and plus 13 plus 3 gives me 16. So I can write this one as x plus 3 times x plus 13, and because we have to find the zeros, I make this one equal to 0. So there are two solutions: either x plus 3 is equal to 0, so x is negative 3, or x plus 13 is 0, so x is negative 13. Now to find the maximum or minimum, in this case, we said that the vertex is minimum. To find the value, I have to find the y-coordinate of the vertex. To find the y-coordinate, I need the x-coordinate of the vertex first. To find the x-coordinate of the vertex, I have the zeros, so I can find the average of these two. So I can say v sub x is negative 3 plus negative 13 divided by 2. Negative 3 plus negative 13 is negative 8. 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. Now to find the maximum or minimum, again in this case is minimum, I just sub it back in the equation. I get v sub y is negative 8 squared plus 16 times negative 8 plus 39. If you simplify this one, we are going to get negative 25. The next question says 5x squared minus 50x minus 120. Again, because the leading coefficient is plus 5, parabola opens upward, so it's a minimum. Now, to find the zeros, I have to make this one equal to 0. I can take the common factor 5 out. I get 5x squared, 5 open bracket x squared minus 10x minus 24 equal to 0. 5 can't be 0, so this means x squared minus 10x minus 24 has to be 0. There is no common factor, and the leading coefficient is 1, so we are going to try sum and product method. Two numbers, the product is 24, are 124, 212, 38, and 46. The product is negative, so one of these numbers has to be negative, and the sum is negative 10. So the one I can use is 212. I can have this one negative and this one positive. Negative 12 times 2 is negative 24. Negative 12 plus 2 is negative 10. So I can write this one as x plus 2 times x minus 12 equal to 0. The product is 0, so either this has to be 0, so x is negative 2, or this has to be 0, so x is equal to 12. Now to find the minimum value, I'm going to find the coordinate, the x-coordinate of the vertex, which is negative 2 plus 12 divided by 2, which is 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Then I'm going to put it back in the equation. I'm going to get v sub y is 5 times 5 squared minus 50 times 5 minus 120, which is going to give me negative 245. The next equation again, y equal negative 2x squared minus 28x plus 64. First of all, because a is negative, this means that the parabola opens downward, so this represents a maximum. But first we are going to find the zeros. I'm going to factor out negative 2, so this becomes negative 2x squared plus 14x minus 32. And because we are supposed to find the zeros. I'm going to make it equal to 0. Now, negative 2 can't be 0, so this means that x squared plus 14x minus 32 is equal to 0. The leading coefficient is 1, so we have to find two numbers that the product is 32 and add up to 14. Those two numbers are 132, 216, 312, and 48. Now, the product is negative, so this means one of these numbers, they have to be negative, and the sum is 14. So the best answer is plus 16 and negative 2, because plus 16 times negative 2 is negative 32. Plus 16 minus 2 gives you 14. So this becomes x minus 2 times x plus 16 equal to 0. This gives me x is equal to 2. This gives me x is equal to negative 16. Now to find the maximum value, I'm going to find v sub x, which is the average of 2 and negative 16. So plus negative 16 divided by 2. This is going to give me negative 7. Now I put it back in the equation. I get v sub y is negative 2, negative 7 squared minus 28 times negative 7 plus 64. If you use your calculator, you get this is equal to 162. The next one, we have to find, first of all, the zeros and then the maximum or minimum value. Again, the quadratic, the leading coefficient is positive 6. So the quadratic, the parabola opens upward. So this means we are dealing with the minimum. To find the zeros, I have to make this one equal to 0. I factor 6 out. I get x squared plus 6x minus 7 is equal to 0. 6 cannot be 0, so this has to be 0. So x squared plus 6x minus 7 is equal to 0. There is no common factor and leading coefficient is 1. So this means that I can use sum and product. Two numbers that I multiply to 7 are 1 and 7 only. That's it. Now, the product is negative 7, so it means one of them has to be negative, and the sum has to be 6. So the answer is going to be negative 1 and plus 7. So we can write this one as x minus 1 times x plus 7. Now this one gives me x is equal to 1. This one gives me x is equal to negative 7. Now to find the value of minimum, I will find the x-coordinate of the vertex, which is the average of 1 and negative 7, divided by 2, which is going to be negative 3. Now I evaluate the value of y when x is negative 3. So v sub y is 6 times negative 3 squared plus 36 times negative 3 minus 42, and this is going to give me negative 96. The next question says, we have a garden which is surrounded by a paved border of uniform width, which in this case is x. Write a simplified expression for the area of the border. The area of the border, I'm going to divide the garden like this. This side is 16 plus 2x, and this is x. So the area of the border is x times 16 plus 2x, but there are two of them here. One is this one and the other one is this one. So I multiply this by 2 plus the area here, this area. This is 14 and this is x, and there are two of them, so it's going to be 2x times 14. So if I distribute this one, 2x times 16 is 32x, plus 2x times 2x is 4x squared, plus 2x times 14 is 28x. So we're gonna end up with 4x squared plus 32x plus 28 is going to give me 60x. The next part of the problem says if the area is 216 square meter, find the width of the border. This means I have to find x if a is equal to 216. I move this to the left, I get 4x squared plus 60x minus 216 is equal to 0. I can factor out 4 and I get 4 times x squared plus 15x minus 54 is equal to 0. I have the product of two numbers equal to 0. 4 can't be 0, so the bracket has to be 0, so x squared plus 15x minus 54 is equal to 0. Now there is no common factor here. The leading coefficient is 1. So I have to find two numbers. The product is 54. So those two numbers are 154, 227, and 318. Between these pairs, I have to find one that the sum is 15 and the product is negative 54. So if I make this guy negative 3 and this one plus 18, 18 minus 3 is 15, 18 times minus 3 is minus 30, minus 54, so I get x minus 3 times x plus 18 is equal to 0. This gives me two answers. From here I get x is equal to 3. From here I get x is equal to negative 18. Since x represents the width of the border, and it can't be negative, so this is not acceptable, so the answer is x is equal to 3. The next question says you have a rider on a mountain bike jumps off a ledge. The path is given by this equation. H is the height above the ground and D is her horizontal distance from the ledge. What is the height of the ledge? To find the height of the ledge, we have to set D equal to 0. So if I set D equal to 0, then I get H is equal to negative 0.3 times 0 is 0 plus 1.2 times 0 is 0, so it's going to be 1.5 meter. The next part of the question says, how far was the rider from the ledge when she landed? This means that H has to be equal to 0 because when it lands, H is 0, so I have to solve this equation. To solve this equation, I factor out negative 0.3. I get D squared minus 4D minus 5 is equal to 0. This negative 0.3 can't be 0, so this has to be 0. So I get D squared minus 4D minus 5 is equal to 0. There is no common factor and leading coefficient is 1, so I'm going to find two numbers that the product is 5. Those two numbers are 1 and 5, that's it. And I want the sum to be negative 4 and product negative 5. So this means if this is negative 5 and this is plus 1, negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. So I can factor this one as D plus 1 times D minus 5 is equal to 0. This gives me D is equal to negative 1. This gives me D is equal to 5. Since the distance from the ledge is d and it can't be negative, this is not acceptable. So the answer is d equal to 5.